Hey all, so we're back for another session of Workshop This. Hi, I'm Robin McClendon. Welcome to my studio, and let's talk glues. I get a lot of questions about the different glues I use. Why do I use the ones that I use? I get questions about maybe others that I'm not necessarily using and why maybe not. So let's just talk about glues, because when we're as mixed media artists, and this series has been focusing a lot on working with gel plates because I work with them a lot and I get so many questions about them. And as many of you know, I'm now working with a publisher to publish a book on my most used favorite techniques, many of which I discovered and kind of perfected on the gel plate. And so as I'm in the process of that, I'm flushing out so much material. And so I wanted to talk about this. Let's start off, and I'm going to tell you the why and how I use them. So let's start with glue sticks. These are some of my fave. I love Giatto. My first fave has always been Uhu. I've been using this for years and years and years, and all of my art journals and a lot of my practice stuff in my art journals and things like that. They're not necessarily what one may call fine art or finished art or art that I may be selling, as final pieces. I don't necessarily use the glue stick for those, but you could, because this is a very good glue stick. And when I look back at my early journals, I have there's no lifting, there's no cracking, there's none of that little corners, that sound you get when you're flipping through and you're like, oh my goodness, this is about ready to fall off my page. So I've worked with Uhu for at least 7 or 8 years, and I can go back to those journals and not have any problems. So this is, I ride and die with Uhu. This is a really, really good glue stick. It's very easy to get in most countries, and it's only a couple of dollars or, a few pounds. So it's not a lot of money, and I love it. And so I use that primarily in my art journals, which I'll show you. I became familiar with Giatto a few years back with another YouTuber, Roxy Creations, who does a lot of mixed media collages and stuff. And she's in Italy, and she swears by this particular one. It's another one that she uses a lot now too. I don't really remember the name of it. It's like a red and white packaging. But I was impressed when she was able to put like thick lace down and that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what kind is that? And so I searched and found it. It's easier for you guys to get it in Europe. Here in the States, it's virtually impossible. So I ordered this from Ken Brownlee in the UK. I'll have all the links below. It's well worth it. I love, love, love this glue stick. And like I said, for high things with dimension, things with a lot of weight, fabrics, cardboards, very thick papers that may have a curl to them that you want to try to get down flat. This is the go-to glue stick. So when I'm working in my journal, I'm actually working with both. This is good for thinner papers, for fragile papers. If you're putting down old books and things like that, fragile, use this. This is going to be too aggressive. You'll rip your paper. But this is really, really a beautiful, smooth, easy glue to use. And so I'm using both. I also love, recently this one came to my attention, and it's also made in Italy. This one of my followers sent this to me, and I fell in love with her. She is also easier to get in Europe than here. It can be very expensive. And I guess expensive is all what you consider it to be. By the time you pay for shipping on Amazon, it could be like $11 or $12. But when you figure out the cost per use, I'm using this in my journal just about every day type of thing. And maybe it lasts me a couple of months. I don't really consider that expensive, considering a cup of Starbucks is $6 and it's gone in 20 minutes. So, it's all relative. For me, art supplies are like my key expenditure, over, the things that, food and eating and place to lay your head. And so I look at it, my cost per use versus how much one product could be expensive. So those are a few of my go-to. This Giatto also has what they call a collage, and it's actually a liquid PVA. This I use carefully. I use this on larger pieces and pieces that I can give a lot of time to dry because it's wet. So I would not use this like I use these. I pull it out because it is in my studio and I do like it, but I use it sparingly. So for the glue sticks, this is like it'd be an example of my journal. In my journals, I'm mostly, so like on this page, I would put these papers down, which are more like photocopier kind of style paper, weight paper, down with the Uhu. I mean, I would use the Giatto or the Uhu, it doesn't matter. This right here, it's a very thin Japanese weight paper. I use the Uhu. Here, right here, this is fabrics. Again, I'm using Giatto. This is an old tea bag. I'm using Uhu. So on one page, I'm using different glues. So it's just not one glue stick I go to. This right here, it's a very thin napkin. This is very thin Asian paper. I'm using the Uhu. Here is a very thick old African textile. I'm using Giatto. You see, so I'm using the glues differently within my art journal. Okay, matte medium. Matte medium, I love using matte medium, and I use it as an overall glue when I'm working on large areas, and also when I'm doing what I would consider more my fine art or whatever, because I want to make sure that I have something that's going to be around for 100 years. It's not going to release. It's going to remain flexible. It's not going to yellow. It's going to be beautiful, 30 years from now. And so Golden's, we know, is a good brand, and their matte medium I love. There's other brands out there. I've used the Liquitex. I have a tendency to gravitate to Golden, but I cut my teeth on Golden years and years ago, and I like their products. So it's just my go-to. Now, I use this instead of Mod Podge. I don't care for Mod Podge. That's just me. I'm not saying it's wrong to use. For those of you who love it, continue on with it. But primarily as a book artist, my mixed media finds its way into large paintings or into book arts. And I found that over the time, it has a tendency, when your books stay on the shelf or stay packed away for a while, when you come back, the pages stick together. And even with the matte, I just never had success with that glossy page thing. I just particularly don't care for it. Or even when it goes matte, this will go matte, but it's still just a layer there. So I like to have the natural finish of the page. So I have a tendency not to put matte media on top of my work. So for example, this would be an example of a collage, one of my larger scale collages and this is all using matte medium or PVA, which I'll tell you about PVA. I don't put anything on top of it because I like the natural finish of the papers. So this is a photocopy. If I'm going to preserve this photocopy, I will take and put a layer, I'll use matte medium on the gel plate. You've seen me do that in an earlier workshop, and so that way I finish off of this before I put it down. And that very thin layer of matte medium doesn't get in the way of the image, but it will help seal it in. Plus, use laser. Don't use inkjet. When you want to use photocopies that you want to stay around for a while, you don't want them to fade, etc., go with laser, and then you can seal it with, like I said, a matte medium glazing on the gel plate. So I'm a matte medium lover, but a lot of people in that case would use Mod Podge. This is another example of matte medium. This is a finished piece that I've done, and this is all tissue paper that was laid down after I printed on it. You can sort of see the edge here. It's like, and I use matte medium. So I covered it, used matte medium, but I didn't cover the top of it. Like I said, I don't really like covering the tops, but you could. My go-to glue is PVA, polyvinyl acetate. Like I said, I've cut my teeth on book arts, book binding, and this is a glue that could be around 500 years from now. And the chemistry of it never completely dries. It always, on a molecular level, it stays fluid, which causes it to remain flexible. So your books don't tear and crack and break and fall apart over the years. And so I use this like I use matte medium. So when I'm working on larger pieces, or pieces that I really want to make sure are my fine art pieces. These are the pieces I'm selling for thousands of dollars. I'm going to use a good PVA. You can water this down a little bit, but at the end of the day, this is my go-to glue. It's pH neutral. It's and it's the same as a white glue. This is considered a white glue or a polyvinyl acetate, and this you can get called glitter glue, but it's called that because it's designed to hold glitter. Like it really locks, you know, objects into the glue. This is an inexpensive version of this, and this is really good too. But when I'm using it for longevity, I'm going to always have a PVA. Make sure that the glue says PVA or Jade, Jade. That is a really good glue, and it's going to be around for a long time. And you pay for what you get. And then my last is, I like tacky glue. If you want an inexpensive version of these two, you know, you're working on your journals or you're doing some smaller collages, honestly, this Aleene's tacky glue, you can get it at the dollar store for $1. I have found this to really be a good adhesive, and it's not expensive. You can also take, if you are a lover of Mod Podge, you can also take this, water it down just a little bit, and it'll act pretty much like a Mod Podge will do. All three of these will do the same thing. But as an inexpensive glue to these versions, like this bottle right here, I think is maybe $30 for, I guess, about 16 ounces. Yeah. This one comes, I normally get it in a set, but this one may be about $6 or $7 for about this amount, 2 ounces. And this one's $1. Okay. So we have kind of all levels of glue. Now, if we're looking at, for a PVA, a book, this is an example. So this is a handmade book that I did. It's accordion style. So accordion is this type of folding. I used all antique book pages that were originally a part of this old book. This is a book that I cut in half, and it became the covers of the book. And then I actually gel printed on the pages with a metallic, doing the glazing process just to knock back some of the text, but I still wanted to see the text. And then this I would continue to work on. But this right here, I used PVA only to do this book, because I want something that is going to be around and I know is really going to stand up to the test of time. So those are my go-to glues, and that's why they're how I use them. And, you know, my cost per use value is indicated based on if I'm putting them in a journal, if I'm doing them in fine art, if I'm using them in my books, things that I want to be around for a long time. Now, these are the glues that I use. Now, I've genuinely pulled this stuff off the shelves of my studio. Most of them are used or used up. It's because I went for the things that I have here and that I use. Now, that doesn't mean that there are not other good glues out there. And it doesn't mean that these particular brands are the only brands. It's just the ones that I have a tendency to gravitate to. I'll tell you why. And also, I'm in the United States of America. So these are the things that are most easy and readily available to me. Although a few of these glue sticks aren't, and I got to work to get these girls. But they're really good, and so I do. But in your own country, you may have a similar product, but it's a different brand, and it can be just as good, and it's readily available. So use this as a jumping off point or a starting point to understand the differences in the types of glues you should have in your studio. But particular to brand, those things can change. And I'm always interested in knowing what your favorite things that you use in your studio, because that's how I also learn. So put the comment below on what your favorite glue is. And also give me the brand, give me the manufacturer, and tell me why. I like to know why, because I think that's what helps us all to really grow. So I can stand here and say, okay, you can use glue sticks, you can use matte medium, you can use a white glue. And if I don't tell you why, it means nothing. So that's it. So from my studio to yours, happy creating. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you again next week. Any questions or anything you'd like for me to cover, please put below this video as a question, and we'll grab it and we'll work on it. Take care. Love you guys. Bye.